Hey everybody, we're back. This is Kevin with Real Estate from a Marketing Perspective, Kevin's Corner, and this is segment number 2. And I'm excited because I have Chris
Tighe
from Elevation Construction.
Correct. Yes.
Who is a new friend of mine. Sponsors some of my events, but this is the first time he's ever been on the podcast.
Yep.
So welcome. So introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah, my name is Chris Tighe, Elevation Construction. We're here in the greater Houston area. Been operating here for about 2 years. Before this, we were operating in Tacoma, Washington. We still operate in Tacoma, Washington. Been working up there for about 4 years. But primarily our focus is here in greater Houston area. We're general contractors, so we do primarily residential, kitchen, bathroom remodels, new additions, roofs, windows, siding, things like that. And we also do commercial build outs. So right now we're finishing up a coffee shop in Spring.
Really?
Today should be wrapping it up today and hopefully get paid next week.
So how many employees do you have here in Houston?
One, not including me.
So who does the work?
Subcontractors.
Subcontractors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And obviously you manage them.
Correct. Yeah.
Kind of keep an eye on them and make sure
Yes.
they do everything right. Code,
Making sure they represent us well, making sure everything is done right. Our subcontractors all have insurance. That's a mandatory thing for us.
Okay.
We have contracts with them. And part of the contract is that they represent us. They operate under our values. And if it's not a good fit, then they move on.
Do you are you looking for additional contractors, or do you have a full staff right now?
We have enough subcontractors for the work we have, but it's always good to have a good pool to pull from because subcontractors, they don't just work for us. They work for other people, right? So if they're busy doing their own projects and we have a project coming up, I don't want to wait for them, right? So I want to be able to pull from a bunch of good people to work with us.
Do you have a job minimum? I mean, is there a job that's too small, or is there a job that's too big?
Too big would be we don't want to build a building. That's a little bit too big and advanced for us. Not yet. One day, but no, we used to do smaller projects because it did lead into bigger ones. But we've gotten busy to a point now where we're turning down smaller projects. But we do have a handyman that we refer work to. So if it's too small, we just say, hey, contact our buddy here, and he'll take care of you. But we will do a new construction home. I don't want to do new construction commercial. I just don't think that is in our wheelhouse, but we will do build outs in commercials.
And will you take on projects from individuals or just from companies, like a development company or something? Or if I was to call you and say, I need new windows, can you put new windows in my house?
Oh, of course. 98% of what we do is exactly that. We don't work for any corporations.
Mm-hmm.
We've had some people, companies reach out to us, and we were open to the idea. But with that comes a lot of, your pricing needs to be this much and this and that. There's a lot of contracts involved in that, and it just kind of never played out.
I know you're probably going to say it depends on the job, but if someone called you and asked you to do something at their house, are you able to do something pretty quickly, or is it something that is going to take weeks to do? I mean, how do you kind of gauge that?
So, assuming that we're on the same page and they're hiring us, we can get started really quick. The things that would hold up a project is one. Are they wanting to draw up plans and work with a designer? So that takes a little time. If any of that requires moving around the structure, then we got to get an engineer involved. And so the engineer needs to do his stuff, put his stamp on it. And once that's done, we'd like to put those in for permits. Right. So assuming all that goes really smooth, we can jump in and get going pretty quick.
Who pulls the permits? You or does the customer?
We will.
You will?
Yeah, we'd rather do that.
How do I know if I need a permit for a job that I need you to do? Do you know that or figure that out?
We will do that, yeah. So anything that, we just did a back patio up in Spring, and, it's kind of like, do we pull a permit? Do we not? Safest thing for resale, if someone were to buy the house, like, hey, is this permitted? You want to be able to say, yes, it was. So pretty much, if you were to ask a city, the city's going to say, oh, you got to permit everything, right?
Right, because they want the money.
Exactly. But I would say if you're doing a kitchen remodel and you're just doing as is, you're not changing the layout or anything, you're just moving cabinets around, no permits are needed there. But if you're doing some moving electrical work or plumbing work, I would want to get that permitted, because not only are you trusting that the plumber's going to do a good job, but I also want the city to say, yep, this was done in compliance, you're good to go, and sign off on it.
And the reason I asked is because, or there's two reasons. Number one, about 4 or 5 years ago, I was really, really surprised to find out that I went to the local hardware place
Mm-hmm.
And bought a tough shed.
Okay.
They wouldn't come out to my house and install it until I got a permit. I'm like, why do I have to buy a permit to put a wood box in my backyard?
And the contractor said that to you?
The not the contractor, the retailer, Home Depot.
Interesting.
And so I went to the city to get the permit, and not only did I have to fight with them on the permit, I had to fight with them on where I was allowed to put the tough shed in my backyard. And it got to the point to where I almost went to Home Depot and said, you know what, forget it. This is too much trouble.
That's interesting.
But yeah, and then I had a friend of mine who is works for runs First Rate Inspection Company,
Mm-hmm.
but he also is knows how to do a lot of work around
Sure.
houses. He came to the house about a month ago now and took down the chain link fence on the front of my house on both sides.
Yep.
It's been there for 40 years, and replaced it with wood fence, so my house looks nicer.
Yeah.
And he never mentioned that I needed a permit. But then the next day I came home, and there's a Pearland city Pearland truck sitting in front of my house taking notes.
Jeez.
But I haven't gotten anything in the mail or anything from
Yeah.
him. So that's why I asked, do you always have to get a permit? Does it matter? When do you know? When do you not know?
I would say, I mean, if you want to be safe, you just call the city and ask them. If it's anything that's visible on the outside, and more than likely you're going to want to call in and just double check. If every city's different.
Replacing a fence with a different type of fence in the same place?
It's kind of surprising that it's a city thing, but if you had an HOA, I would. Okay, so I don't know. That's kind of strange to me. Yeah.
Well, I haven't heard from them. So,
yeah.
It's just, and so if you don't pull a permit and the city finds out, what's the penalty for that?
Every city's got their own fines and whatnot. Some cities are more lenient than others because if you say, "Oh, I didn't know I needed to do this," you can do a retroactive permitting. We're doing one in Washington, a retroactive permitting thing where the owner didn't want to permit it, and then decided, okay, I want to sell it, so I want to permit it. Now we're retroactive permitting it. It's kind of a process,
right.
Kind of a pain. But a fence, I mean, there's a fence here. You don't have to dig into walls. You don't have to check plumbing or electrical, so it shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah, but the penalties are just fines, right? They're not.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no legal action or anything like that.
I don't think so. We've never gone that far.
Yeah. Okay. So you bring up Washington. You said Tacoma. Is there a difference in the markets in types of clients and types of jobs and just doing business in Washington? How different is it from here?
Well, the biggest difference are the cities, right? So dealing with Seattle is different than dealing with Tomball. It's a lot easier to deal with Tomball than it is Seattle. Even Houston's easier than Seattle. But as far as the clientele goes, so our demographic in Washington is a little bit different. We started off doing apartment renovations for investors. Mm-hmm. So majority of our clientele up there, they're all investors, and we get repeat customers. Very few residential home-occupied homes, but we've done them before. But primarily they're investors. Here, it's different. We're getting our leads through SEO, they're homeowner occupied, residential stuff. So a little different.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just mentioned SEO. So this podcast leans towards more of a marketing perspective.
Excellent.
So tell everybody what you do or what your company does to generate leads and to get business. So
when I first started, it was all networking, and majority of my leads came from networking. And I was just telling Craig, it was killing me. I'm not a guy that likes to go to parties and stuff and do small talk, but I did it because I needed the business.
You gotta get your name
Exactly, right.
Yourself that.
But while I was doing that, I was building my website, and I use a company called Carrot, and they're very good with SEO. They have a good track record on helping their people get leads through their website. So I just learned a lot from them over the last year, implemented things that I learned, and it just worked. I do a lot of blogs. I make sure that I watch the keywords that I'm shooting for, making sure my landing pages and my blogs hit those keywords.
Mm-hmm.
Right now I'm ranked, for a couple of weeks I was ranked #1 for kitchen remodels in Cyprus, but there's another company, he and I are kind of going back and forth, so it's kind of a fun game. But yeah, so in the last 3 months, 26 of my leads came from my website, and I only got 4 from networking. So it's gotten to a point now where my website's taking over. Yeah.
And so agents out there watching this podcast, if you know me and you work with me, everything he just said about SEO and websites, I teach you. And this is proof that it works. Okay. Search engine optimization works.
Right.
The key is you have to be consistent.
Exactly.
You have to constantly be putting new content on your website. And the keywords, he mentioned it 3 times. In your content that you put out there on the internet, whether it's your website, your social media, your blog, anything, you got to use and include keywords that the public is using to search for your services in the city that you're in. That's going to get you the fastest climbing the rankings up there. And I agree with you because everybody knows that I have a side gig on the weekend, and I manage the social media and the website SEO for, and I'll give them a plug, Speed and Sport Chrome Plating. There you go, Greg. And we've been #1 in Houston on Google for 2.5 years now.
Excellent.
So it does work, and he's a perfect example of someone that's doing it, and it's getting him business. So is there something about marketing or some kind of marketing content or technique that you aren't doing right now that you might want to try in the future?
Well, I started my podcast. I'm 20 episodes in. That's gaining traction. So that's in addition to what I'm doing. So
how often do you do the podcast?
Probably every other week. I'm trying to do 40 episodes in the year. So I'm at 20 now. But my next step would be paid ads. So I haven't pulled the trigger on that just yet because what I found is that we have a backlog in getting our estimates out. And once we figure out that backlog and how to fix it, that bottleneck, then we can open up the floodgates for more leads. What I don't want to do is get a flood of leads, have a huge backlog, do poor service, and then we just go, our rankings go to crap because of it. So I want to make sure we fix that first, and then we can bring in more leads and start servicing that way.
Do you have a Google My Business page?
I do.
Are you getting reviews?
Yes.
And you're answering the reviews?
Yes.
See, I don't have to teach him anything. He's just proving my point.
Yeah.
So tell everybody a little bit about, so how does it work? So I come to you and say, hey, Chris, I need some new windows put in my house.
Mm-hmm.
What happens next?
So what we would do is schedule an appointment to come to your house, and so you can tell us what your vision is, what you want to do. And Pablo is our guy who goes out and meets you. He'll do all the measurements, ask you the questions so that we know exactly what you want. He'll take all the notes, take all the photos, measurements, whatever data that we need to put together an estimate. It takes about, depending on the size of the project, it could take up to a week. If it's a large project, maybe 2 weeks, because if we got to ask electrical, plumbing, carpenter, and all these other trades what their numbers are, it takes a little time. So then you'll... However big the project is, the estimate will come, and at that point we'll discuss like, hey, here's the estimate. It's a line item estimate. We don't do like this big paragraph with one final price because there's no transparency in that. But we do line items, and we'll talk about it. If you have any questions, or if you're on the same page and we want to go forward with the project, send out a contract. It'll get you on the schedule and take care of you.
And how does someone pay for the services you provide? They have to give you money up front, pay everything at the end? How does that work?
We do a 50% deposit at the front, and then what we do is progress payments. So once we're at 50% complete, we do another 25% progress payment, and there's 25% left. So we'll finish the project. We'll do a walkthrough with you and make sure everything is done to your satisfaction, and then we ask for that final payment.
Okay. And tell me again, how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing construction for 4 years, total Washington and here, specifically here for 2 years.
Okay. Do you have a website?
I do.
What's the URL?
ElevationConstructionTeam.com.
All right. And are you on social media?
Yes.
Which platforms?
Elevation Construction Team on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. We do have Pinterest, but we're not really all that active in it. And YouTube. We have 178 videos on YouTube. Our goal is to hit 200 videos before school starts. Okay. And we have about 200 subscribers now.
Nice. And what are the videos about?
Education, whatever it might be. So just kind of like, for SEO purposes, I will do a search on a topic, and you scroll down and you see something that says people also ask, and there's questions. That's where I get my content from. That's where I get the titles of my videos and blogs.
That you do the videos
exactly. And then we also have before and afters, whatever else out there that might be of value to our audience.
Okay. I know you probably said this at the beginning of the podcast, but remind everybody what it is you will do as far as projects goes.
We'll do home remodels, kitchen, bathroom, new additions. We'll do roofs, outside windows, sidings, things like that. We've been doing a lot of back patios lately, and commercial build-outs. Okay,
awesome. Tell everybody how they get a hold of you.
Website's the best, elevationconstructionteam.com. You can email me, Christopher at elevationconstructionteam.com. And phone number, should I give that out? 832-353-1491.
Awesome. Well, guys, first of all, appreciate you being on the podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I think you've been asking me for a while, and I finally got you on, so apologize for that.
No worries.
I'm a popular guy. I'm booked out through September right now.
Nice.
So this is Chris
Tighe.
See, I told you I'd mess that up. I'm not going to edit it out. I apologize. Chris Tighe, Elevation Construction. Your phone number one more time.
832-353-1491.
Thanks very much for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin.
So we're going to be back just in a second with segment number 3. I told you guys I have a surprise for you. Usually don't have 3 segments, but I got a special guest coming, so we'll be right back.
I thought I was...